When you hear the word vampire, a variety of images may come to mind. Perhaps a Halloween costume with plastic fangs and a cape, or a fanged pop culture character from movies or TV shows. We all have at least once wished if we were like these powerful creatures, and who would not love to be invincible, able to read minds or control people, will through compulsion.
I know you're obsessed with me.
That's right, we have all been obsessed with vampires at some point in our lives, whether may it be our childhood or teenage years or even after. Hello, fellow histrophiles. Today we are going to discuss the history of Dracula and vampires from the very beginning. All the folklores of vampires are in different mythologies. Before we start, do subscribe to our channel History Facts and hit the bell icon to not miss out on any of our interesting videos. Let's begin. Well, it's hard to say what the first vampire story was. Pop culture as far back as the 1800s has had a big impact on how we think of seductive night walkers today. But there have been hints of the modern idea in myths since the beginning of written history. Some people think that the story of Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess of plague and healing who looks like a cat, is one of the oldest vampire stories. People say that Ra, the sun god, sent his daughter Sekhmet to punish people for not listening to him. But Sekhmet couldn't stop drinking blood while she was killing, so Ra made a bunch of beer red to quench her thirst. Basically, she guzzled it all and slept for 3 days. Lilith was a figure in Jewish folklore from 4,000 years ago. In some stories, she was Adam's wife before Eve. In ancient Babylonia, she had a bad reputation. Her name derives from a Sumerian word for female demons or wind spirits, Lilitu. According to scholar J.A. Skurlock, writing in the Jewish Women's Archive, the Babylonians thought the Lilitu were hungry for victims because they used to be human and slipped through windows into people's houses looking for victims to take the place of husbands and wives they never had. Lilith has been thought of as a dangerous, hungry temptress for centuries. She was the first vampire in True Blood, but some self-identified feminists see her as the first misunderstood feisty lady, inspiring the Jewish American magazine of the same name. In many cultures, there is a creature that takes people's life. Some people think that the manananggal in the Philippines can change into a woman and drink blood from pregnant women's bellies. But vampires really started in Europe. During the Middle Ages, there were many different versions of early vampire myths all over Europe. These bad monsters were often used to explain plagues and other diseases. Scientific American says that some people in Eastern Europe with a rare blood disorder called porphyria may have given vampires some of their physical traits. Some of the signs of porphyria are sensitivity to light, which can cause blisters or burns on the skin when exposed, hallucinations, and receding gums that make the teeth look longer. And the effects of light sensitivity can be so bad that people lose their ears and noses, the BBC said. This is similar to how vampires like Nosferatu look. We've always thought of Transylvania, an old part of Romania, as the home of vampires, in part because that's where the fictional Dracula came from. And Bram Stoker did that on purpose because people in the area believe in ghosts. In Romania, people have been afraid of the strigoi for hundreds of years. The strigoi are once human monsters that need blood to stay alive. In fact, The Guardian wrote about a ritual to kill vampires in a Romanian village in 2005. The ritual was done after the family of worker Petra Toma, who died in 2003, decided he had become a strigoi. 6 men dug up the body, staked it, put garlic on it, and used a pitchfork to open Toma's ribcage. A neighbor of Toma's told the outlet that they took out his heart, burned it, and put the ashes in a glass of water to drink. A 700-year-old skeleton found in Bulgaria in 2012 points to the area's own custom of killing vampires. It had been pinned down with a rock to keep it from coming back to life. It had also been stabbed in the chest with an iron rod, and its teeth had been taken out so it couldn't bite. In 2006, archaeologists in Italy found a mass grave of plague victims from the 16th century. One of the female skeletons had a brick stuck in her jaw, which National Geographic says was a common way to get rid of vampires at the time in Europe. Even though some researchers think that the brick fell into the skull's mouth while it was in the grave, anti-vampire rituals did happen in Europe and later in the US. It wasn't until disease spread through the region that New Englanders began to truly fear vampires. In the 1800s, people in rural New England would dig up, desecrate, and rebury the bodies of their neighbors. This happened at least 60 times, according to Bell's book Food for the Dead. Historians say that tuberculosis, which is also called consumption, was another time when a disease that spread quickly was blamed on vampires. Have you heard of the case of Mercy Brown and New England's fear of vampires? History.com says that her mother and sister's bodies were just bones, but Mercy's body was on its side and had hair and nails. Bell said that a local doctor said this was normal since she had just died 8 weeks before. But the people in town didn't listen to the doctors because so many people had died helplessly from what we now know to be tuberculosis. And then in the 1800s, vampires became scary and hot. By the time the people of Exeter burned Mercy Lena Brown's heart, old-fashioned fears of vampires were already running into modern scientific ideas. The Catholic Church was also upset by the rituals that involved desecrated graves. In the late 1700s, Pope Benedict XIV said that vampires were false fictions of human fantasy. Carmilla, a serial about a female vampire written by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu in 1872, and Dracula also captivated audiences with their romantic gothic horror stories and charming, often well-dressed monsters. In another popular Victorian-era serial, Varney the Vampire, the idea of a close vampire kiss was first made popular. With a plunge, he seizes her neck in his fang-like teeth. You know there is a chance that Dracula was based on a real person. All of these stories were influenced by the folklore of Eastern and Central Europe. Dracula, written by Bram Stoker, may have been the most influenced by the culture of Transylvania. Many people think that the real Vlad III Dracula, also known as Vlad the Impaler, was an inspiration for Count Dracula. Vlad the Impaler was a Romanian warrior prince in the 15th century. He is known for his cruel way of torturing enemies on the battlefield. He would put them on stakes and let them bleed to death by the thousands. Since the first vampire story craze in the 1800s, myths have been taken in every possible direction. The vampires go to school, Vampire Academy, the marked book series. They could be a hero wearing a leather duster, Blade, or they share a room on Staten Island and live a normal life, What We Do in the Shadows. Today, most stories feature either the cold-blooded parasite archetype or the more human version, each with their own internal struggles and feelings. Often feelings for a human, like Buffy and Bella Swan. And do you know why people believe vampires drink blood? People had this idea because they didn't know much about the gross things that happen in the body. National Geographic says, as a corpse's skin shrinks, its teeth and fingernails can seem to have grown longer. And as organs inside the body break down, a dark liquid called purge fluid can leak out of the nose and mouth. When a body that was thought to be a vampire was dug up, the purge fluid could be mistaken for blood, making it look like the person had eaten something. So that's it for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Just for fun, tell us which vampire character you like best in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well. Thank you so much for watching our video today, and we will see you soon with another incredible video. Until then, goodbye.